Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, you autopilot people. Whew. Man, we got some Tesla news. This is not good.
I hate to say I told you so.
Not looking good, friend. Not looking good. I think people kind of get where we're coming from on the autopilot sector, right? Don't you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the risk of repeating myself for the, I haven't used this one yet, for the umpteenth time.
Ooh. My mom used to pull that one out on me.
It's an oldie but a goodie, as they say. And now you got me thinking about Back to the Future. So, right. We're going to have a little conversation today on autopilot.
Yeah.
And how it's not a bad thing, but it's not ready for prime time.
Right.
So, I guess first, not to point the finger at Tesla. Tesla's been leading the way. We love innovation. Part of the reason that I'm a fan of what Elon Musk is doing is because he's pushing that envelope. And I can't, speak for you, Jay, but I think you feel the same. I
do. I think that there has to be some reining in, though, and more controlled environment. Sometimes, it's like when you give a little bit too much, there's going to be those ones that kind of like abuse it. And I think that's
you mean like sticking tangerines in the steering wheel, or
right?
Who was it?
Consumer
Reports going out and filming a video on exactly how to defeat the safety countermeasures.
You got it. Which, by the way, guys, if you go back to our video that we shot on that, Consumer Reports basically tricked a Tesla into autopilot and became a driverless vehicle, which is so irresponsible. But we released that video back on May the 13th of 2021. Make sure you go back and check it out at youtube.com/Parts Kind of Guru. Ring that bell and hit that subscribe button.
So
okay.
I got a question, Jay.
Yes.
No, it's a good thing. So we introduced. I can't leave this Consumer Reports thing alone just yet. We just started doing a bozo segment, everybody, that we do during our podcast. Typically we record a podcast a week. That you can find on our website at partscounterguru.com. On the top leftish area of the web page, there's a little podcast tab. You click on that, it'll take you to all the podcast platforms of choice. They're typically at the bottom, and you can find the one that you like or love, and you'll see our podcast.
Please subscribe.
So, and for those of you that have, thank you. We're growing leaps and bounds, and it's been huge. So,
and where are we going to be?
SEMA. We'll be podcasting from SEMA as well. So you want to make sure that you're subscribed to get those updates and live streams and all of the above. Right.
Right on.
So, so we just started doing a bozo segment, and Consumer Reports. It's a good thing we waited until after you guys released this information, or you'd have made our bozo of the week. Okay, now. So what's been going? So we have learned that recently the U.S. government, and I'm thinking this is going to end up being the NTSB, but there's going to be an investigation into Tesla's autopilot because they have had 11 crashes into emergency management vehicles.
Yeah, and this is
11.
Wow.
11. Now, these, in most cases, were vehicles that were parked on the shoulder, on the side of the road.
17 people were injured and 1 was killed.
Okay.
In these particular instances.
Now, let's just take a step back here for a second, and let me be clear. This is not an attack on Tesla. We
like Tesla.
Yeah. This is a company that's pushing the envelope. I've driven their stuff. Their driving assistance features are great. They're great.
Right.
Okay. They're in many cases they're the best out there.
And it's an amazing vehicle, period.
Yes. However, we just live in a world where it's not a reality yet to expect this. See, that's the problem that I have is people like the guys in Texas that, jumped in the back seat and died because they were, flying around corners at 50 something miles an hour. And
right.
Look how great my Tesla is. It's foolproof. No, it's not. No car.
And now they're no longer here to talk about how great their Tesla is.
So I think the problem that I have is it's kind of like, the space program in the 80s. We're overselling the safety of something that really isn't as safe as we want it to be.
Right.
And you made a good point before we started rolling the cameras, Jay, about the marriage of the existing technology and the reality of the physical realm. How did you say that?
Well, you can't expect there is no way possible machine learning is capable of every single scenario that is in front of you at any given time.
We call those variables.
Exactly. You just can't give it all the scenarios. That is why we are so far away from this technology being. It has to be a controlled environment.
Yeah, so you can teach stop sign recognition. You can teach emergency services recognition to an extent, right? If you have a database of vehicles and the lights are all in similar locations.
Right.
But what happens next year when somebody releases a new version of a fire truck that rearranges kind of the back end? And then what happens if you get emergency services vehicles stopped at a stop sign with a pedestrian? And you're just introducing all these variables into the mix. And I'm telling you, we can to some extent cover those variables, but not 100%.
That's right. You can't. Let's get into why we're talking about this.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
The NTSB, or excuse me, NHTSA.
That would be the National Highway
Traffic Administration, Safety
Administration.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't, man. Too many acronyms. We're going to do a show on acronyms, dude.
Okay.
We've been talking
about that from the beginning. Yeah.
Right. I knew that's what it was. But anyway, I don't need to. Don't worry about my acronym lack of ability. But we're more concerned about Tesla's lack of ability to be able to go into autopilot, and here's why. They have opened up an investigation. And it involves 765,000 vehicles, which is almost everything that Tesla has built, sold in the U.S., that is, since 2014. And again, we spoke earlier of these crashes. There are 11 crashes. 17 people were injured and one was killed. And they identified these crashes, these 11 crashes, since 2018, where the Teslas were on autopilot or traffic-aware cruise control, and they hit vehicles at scenes where first responders use flashing lights, flares, illuminated arrow. Anything they would use to let oncoming traffic, or any traffic coming, know that this is a warning. There is an incident here. So these crashes have occurred, and they've crashed right into these emergency vehicles. So that tells you that there is not that scenario built into this software.
Now Tesla warns, and this is where I go back to my whole, we had the same problem with drones. So I'd been an RC pilot since I was probably 14 or 15. I built my first glow fuel balsa plane and, never looked back, right? And then as a photographer and a videographer, got into attaching cameras to any remote control flying aircraft that I could figure out. What's, single prop helicopter, single rotor, anything, right? Now we're in multi-rotor. So it's the same thing that happened in that industry that's going to happen here. I'm going to tell you right now. And it's these, I'm not going to say the word I want to say so that we can keep this segment kid friendly. It's these jokers that ruin it for the rest of us, right? It just takes one or two, crashing their drone on the White House lawn or whatever. Tesla is telling people that you must be ready to take over at all times.
Absolutely.
But that still doesn't stop Consumer Reports from going out there and showing you how to release videos on how to defeat the system, people jamming tangerines in the steering wheel and taking naps, driving home drunk. None of those are Tesla's fault. But it's going to force their hand here, and they're going to have to start locking this stuff down.
Right.
Because of those few that continue to just do what they want, even though they're not supposed to.
Right. And think about this. you have a technology that probably has to take millions of things in view at any given time in a matter of a minute of what's going on around them. How can you possibly think of every single scenario that's going to be in front of you with this technology?
This is my kind of analogy of where you should realistically expect this to be right now. Okay, so let's go back to our friend Cameron, who when you test drove the Ford Mach-E. Okay,
glad you're going there. Yep.
And this was probably a little scary moment for you because I don't think you'd ever done this before. And he's like, go ahead and take your hands off the wheel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the way that he explained that is the way that I'm going to say that's where we need to set our expectations today. He said, say you're reaching down for a cup of coffee or a drink or beverage or whatever. You take your hands, or I've done this before. Like, there's something in your lap or something sitting up on the dash, and you take a corner and it slides off and it hits the floor, and you need to reach down and your phone's ringing and you're trying to find it or something, right?
Right.
And it's go ahead and take your hands off the wheel for a second to readjust, grab the hamburger, whatever.
Right.
This is going to take the place of the old driving with your knees that, whether I'll admit it or not, we've all probably done.
We've all done it. I've been guilty of it, man.
But it is not going to take the place of you like pulling out your laptop and getting on a Zoom call going down the road.
Exactly. It just isn't going to happen.
There's a just stark difference between the two. Nothing is perfect. This thing, like I'll tie in the article from Yosemite National Park where
there's a fork in the road, huh?
Right,
Yeah.
so there's this road in Yosemite with some giant boulders. So it's like a Y, basically.
Yep.
I mean, one kind of goes straight and one kind of goes more off at an angle.
It's almost like it's an off ramp or something kind of situation.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, but the off ramp is kind of to the left, I guess.
Correct. That's right.
And so these Teslas have been crashing there.
Mm-hmm. Like five instances, I think they said.
Because they're confused. Because it's a weird left off-ramp kind of thing. And
yes,
again, it's a variable that they are not used to being exposed to. It's in a national park, so there's not a whole lot. Usually there's no power in national parks, like for stoplights and that sort of. I'm not saying there's not stoplights in national parks. I'm just saying they're fewer and further in between. Right.
And what there is so confusing to the onboard system. I mean, it's simple. If you look at the way they've got lines, they've got parts of the road. If you look at it, where they have painted lines where you are to avoid driving in. It gives you that buffer zone from either side of the road. It really, to me, as a human, it's quite obvious what's going on. And you're at a fork in the road. You need to figure out which direction you want to go. And why is this Tesla?
Well, and I'm going to go back to, I've driven Teslas. The minute that you exert force on that steering wheel or you step on the brake, Autopilot's off.
Right.
It's kicked off. You're now back in control. So the fact that, and if you look at this particular intersection that we're talking about, that these cars basically slammed into the rocks, and some of them were pretty messed up, like they did, that is somebody not paying attention, most likely.
Well, in this particular situation, Keith, the guy shared his incident. Now, this is what he says happened, okay? And we'll just go with that, take his word for it. The owner, he shared it on Reddit. He says, just sharing my story of my 2020 Model X accident on July 25th, 25-mile-an-hour speed zone, 2 lanes.
Common in the national parks, Yep.
Lane 1 curves left, lane 2 goes straight, hands on wheel, eyes on road. Vehicle just wanted to keep going straight. He says he took control, entered the gravel and smashed into a boulder. No airbag deployed, but he couldn't drive the vehicle. And he says that he talked to some of the local rangers there about that. And he says, there's been about 3 or 4 other ones that happened. So it's not the first time it's happened. So obviously there is some sort of glitch in the system that needs to be considered when in these types of scenarios.
Okay. So I have a couple, as I Google something here. I have a couple. So you just laid out one of them. There's really 2 realistic scenarios from what's possible here. I mean, we can get into wild conspiracy theories, but basically either Autopilot's not disengaging properly,
right?
Okay, or somebody's fudging. Somebody's not telling the whole truth.
Exactly,
okay?
And that's why I brought up this is what he says happened, just like the two folks in Texas that lost their lives. You know, people are assuming that they may have been driving or may have been in the back seat. We don't know.
Modern automobile.
Yeah.
Stopping distance at 25 miles an hour. Here, you need a little.
Go for it.
You need any? Here, I'll give you. You want? This is a weird fact for you.
Okay.
All right. You gonna take a guess at what the stopping distance is for a modern automobile? I'm not talking about a 1980 Ford Futura Fairmont. Modern automobile. I'll give you a range. Just pick a range. At 25 miles per hour, what should the stopping distance be?
I would say 20 feet, man. 20, 30 feet.
Yep. It's anywhere, depends on the car. Mm-hmm. You know, your better car is obviously going to be down towards that 20 to 60. 20 to 60 feet.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
25 miles an hour. Yep.
Right. Yep.
So,
wow.
20 to 60 feet. 60 feet. 60 feet.
Right.
Okay.
And
I can almost bet you that at 60 feet, that guy would not be in the rocks if he were to have applied the brakes at the beginning of the turn.
Right. Someone wasn't paying attention.
Now,
and again, we've talked about this. And we don't know for sure. We're not calling the guy out. We're just saying this is his story, and we'll have to let the investigators look into that.
Or Autopilot wouldn't disengage. One of the two.
Right. One of the two. And you're right. You made a valid point because, you know, if you're doing 20, 25 miles an hour, you should be able to stop within 20 to 60 feet.
Let's bring this back full circle, or if you prefer, we'll bring it home. Or you can bring it home, and to do that, you just click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave us a comment. Tell us what you think.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there'll be a follow-up to this, everybody.
Absolutely.
So in traffic, and I depends on sometimes the city you're in. When there's an emergency services vehicle stopped on the side of the road, typically you're not doing, if that's a 70 mile an hour highway, freeway speed lane, you're not doing that.
Correct.
And if you are doing that, you're not in much traffic, but you should at the very least. Most states have a law that you need to move over one lane, right?
Right.
So again, man, there's a lot of detail here, and Jay and I are just kind of putting all this together for you. We're laying the pieces on the table. There's something in this that doesn't add up. What
doesn't add up is the human element that's involved with this. They are being very irresponsible in using this technology, and they are getting too lazy. They're relying way too much on this technology that is not proven. And in fact, in my opinion, I think it ought to be banned until they can get their fingers on the pulse here.
Now you're stirring the pot.
Yeah,
we welcome
that's
your
just
letters.
my opinion.
Leave us a comment.
We do. Yeah. Well, hey, if you've got any better ideas on how to save lives or how to drive your car, just let me know.
In closing, I'll just say this, everybody. Don't be in too much of a hurry to give away control. I'm not saying that automation isn't a great thing. It's very helpful. It's very handy. But if you press too hard for that, we could very well find ourselves in a situation where you're no longer allowed to drive. I like to drive. This is kind of what we talk about on this program is driving.
I do too. And I enjoy being in control of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Yes, there are times when I'd like to sit back and, maybe get in a cab or take a train and let somebody else man the ship.
But we have services for that, right?
That's exactly right. Right now, we're not there, folks. So, again, we've got a long way to go with this technology. And unfortunately, people have lost their lives because it is not where it needs to be yet. And I think we're going to continue to see that for a while until we can get our hands on how to get this thing to work right. So, right?
All right. There you go, everybody.
Hey, we'll see you at SEMA, guys. Check us out. All right?
Jay's ready to argue his point. Come find us at SEMA. You got to wear that hat so they can find you.
Okay, I will. I'll do that. Okay.